There are people who genuinely prefer their own company. Not because they're antisocial, not because they have relationship issues, and not because they're traumatized or bitter, but simply because they feel more complete alone than being with others all the time. And society, it treats this as a pathology or something strange. People often say, you need to get out more. You'll end up alone forever. No one is an island. What's as if preferring solitude were a symptom of something wrong, something that needs to be fixed. But there's a completely different way to look at this. And it comes from one of the most influential psychologists in history. Carl Jung spent decades studying the human mind. And one of the things he discovered, something that made a lot of people uncomfortable, was this. People who enjoy their own company aren't running away from the world. They're accessing something most people never touch. Their inner world. And the deeper he went, the more he realized that these people aren't a broken exception. They may actually be the most psychologically healthy. Because while most people live on autopilot, filling every silence, avoiding solitude, depending on external validation to feel real, these people discovered something radical. They don't need anyone else to fully exist. And that isn't coldness. It isn't isolation. It's freedom. Think about that person you know who spends entire weekends alone and seems perfectly fine with it. Or that coworker who doesn't go to happy hours, doesn't show up to social events, yet doesn't seem unhappy. Quite the opposite. They seem at peace. The automatic reaction? They must be lonely. Poor thing. Someone should include them. But here's what no one notices. They don't want to be included. Not because they reject people, but because they've already found something most people spend their entire lives looking for outside and never find: inner wholeness. Jung called this individuation. The process of becoming who you truly are rather than who others expect you to be. And he realized something crucial. You can't do this amid the constant noise of social life. You need silence, solitude, time without external interference. Because when you're always surrounded by people, you're always reacting, adjusting, performing, even if subtly, even unconsciously. You laugh at jokes you didn't find funny. You agree with opinions that aren't yours. You soften what you say to avoid upsetting anyone. You wear social masks so automatically that you don't even notice you're doing it anymore. And in the middle of all that, you lose yourself. You stop knowing what you truly think, what you truly feel, who you really are when no one is watching. People who enjoy their own company have discovered something simple but revolutionary. When they're alone, they don't need to wear any masks. There's no one to impress, no one to please, no expectations to meet. And in that empty space, something happens. You start to hear your own voice. Not the voice of your parents, not the voice of society, not the voice of friends or a partner. Your voice. And often, for the first time in your life, you realize, I didn't even know what I truly wanted. I only knew what I was told I should want. Jung believed that most people go through their entire lives without ever truly meeting themselves because they're afraid of solitude, afraid of silence, afraid of being alone with their own thoughts. So they fill every second. Music, TV, social media, shallow conversations, anything to avoid facing the emptiness. But emptiness isn't the problem. Emptiness is where real self-knowledge begins. And people who enjoy their own company, they're not afraid of it. They step into it, they explore it, and they discover that on the other side, there isn't loneliness. There's clarity, there's authenticity, there's the freedom to be exactly who you are, unedited, unperformed, unapologetic. But that comes at a cost. And it's a cost most people aren't willing to pay. The cost is this. When you start to enjoy your own company, you stop tolerating things you used to accept. Shallow conversations begin to feel like a waste of time. Convenience-based relationships stop making sense. You can't stand pretending to be interested in topics that don't move you just to keep an interaction going. And people notice. You've changed. You're distant. You're not as fun as you used to be. But here's the truth. You didn't change. You just stopped performing. And when you stop performing, most of the relationships you had reveal what they always were. Superficial, transactional, built around an edited version of you, not the real one. Jung said that individuation is by nature a solitary process, not because you reject people, but because most people reject who you become when you stop reshaping yourself to fit in. They prefer the predictable version, the one who laughs at the same jokes, complains about the same things, validates their choices by making the same ones. When you step out of that script, it creates discomfort because your transformation exposes their stagnation. So there's constant pressure for you to go back, to be normal again, to stop thinking you're better than everyone else. But you don't think you're better. You just discovered that you prefer meaningful solitude over empty company. And that's intolerable to people who have never faced their own emptiness. There's another element Jung identified. The more you know yourself, the more selective you become. Because when you know who you are, you also know what you are not. And it no longer makes sense to waste energy on environments, conversations, or relationships that don't align with that. It's not arrogance. It's energy conservation. You stop going to parties that drain you. You stop accepting invitations out of obligation. You stop maintaining friendships that exist only by inertia. From the outside, it looks like you're isolating yourself, like you're becoming weird, antisocial. But on the inside, you're simply healing from years of living disconnected from yourself. Jung believed that solitude is not the absence of people, it's the absence of noise. And noise doesn't come only from external voices, it also comes from the internal voices you've absorbed throughout your life. You should be more social. Successful people have large networks. No one wants to be alone. Those voices, they're not yours, they're echoes. And when you finally silence them, something interesting happens. You stop missing things that were never truly important to you. You stop feeling like you should be doing something different or being someone else. You simply are at peace with yourself. And that scares people because most can't sit peacefully with themselves for even 5 minutes. So when they see someone who can, they interpret it as an anomaly, as a problem, when in reality it's the opposite. Jung had an idea that made a lot of people uncomfortable. He believed that true psychological maturity doesn't come from adapting to the world. It comes from becoming independent of it. And that doesn't mean rejecting people. It means not needing them to feel whole. Most people build their identity on external validation. Who they are depends on how others see them, what others think, how much others approve. So when they're alone, they feel empty. Because when they're alone, there's no one reflecting back who they are. People who enjoy their own company discovered something different. They exist independently of other people's gaze. They know who they are without needing confirmation. They know what they feel without needing validation. They know what they want without needing approval, and that creates a level of psychological autonomy most people never reach. Jung called this the self, the true center of personality. And he said most people spend their lives orbiting around others, never around themselves. They make decisions based on what's expected. They choose careers that look good on paper. They get married because it's time. They have kids because it's the next step. And in the middle of all that, they never stop to ask, but is this what I want? People who enjoy their own company ask that question constantly, and many times the answer is no. No, I don't want this kind of social life. No, I don't want this kind of relationship. No, I don't want to follow the script everyone else follows. And then comes the hard part, living according to those answers. Because when you choose a path that's truly yours, not the popular path, not the expected one, but yours, you end up alone. Not necessarily physically, but existentially, because most people won't understand your choices. They won't validate your priorities, and they won't support the way you choose to live. They'll question you, judge you, try to convince you that you're wrong. And if you don't have deep roots in who you are, you give in. You go back to the herd, and you spend the rest of your life wondering, what if? But if you've cultivated a relationship with yourself, if you've spent enough time in solitude to know your own voice, you can withstand the pressure, because you know something they don't. Chosen solitude is better than forced company. Solitary authenticity is better than false belonging. Jung said individuation isn't for everyone, because it requires the courage to disappoint people, the courage to be misunderstood, the courage to live without the approval most people desperately seek. But for those who walk this path, the reward is something money can't buy and no relationship can give. Genuine peace with yourself. And once you have that, everything changes. Here's what changes. You stop living in fear of being alone. Most people make terrible decisions driven by that fear. They stay in bad relationships because being with someone is better than being alone. They accept toxic friendships because at least I have someone. They maintain energy-draining connections because the alternative, being alone, feels worse. But when you enjoy your own company, that fear disappears, and suddenly you have real choice. You don't accept just anything to avoid being alone. You choose who you're with based on quality, not need. And when no one meets that standard, you stay alone, and you're perfectly fine with it. That's not coldness. It's psychological health. Jung believed that the more whole you are on your own, the better your relationships become, because you're not using people to fill emptiness. You're choosing to be with them because they add something, not because you need them. And that completely changes the dynamic. You don't shape yourself to be accepted. You don't perform to be loved. You don't bargain away parts of who you are in exchange for company. You simply are. And those who resonate with that stay. Those who don't, leave. And you don't fall apart over either outcome. There's another benefit no one talks about. When you enjoy your own company, you develop an incredibly rich inner life. You read more. You think more. You create more. You explore ideas you'd never touch amid the constant noise of socializing. While most people consume passive entertainment to escape themselves, you use solitude as fuel for growth. And over time, you become more interesting. Not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you're genuinely engaged with your own existence. Jung saw this as the ultimate goal of psychology. Not to adjust people so they fit better into society, but to free them to become who they truly are. And who you truly are is often someone who prefers their own company to the company of most people. That's not a flaw. It's discernment. Because the truth is, most social interactions are shallow. Most conversations are empty. Most relationships are based on convenience, not real connection. And when you realize this, when you truly see it, you stop wasting time pretending you don't. You choose differently, you live differently, and inevitably, you end up alone more often. But being alone with clarity is infinitely better than being surrounded by people with confusion. So here's the final message. If you're someone who enjoys your own company, don't let anyone convince you there's something wrong with you. You're not antisocial, you're selective, you're not running away from people, you're prioritizing yourself, and according to Jung, that isn't selfishness, it's the beginning of true individuation. If this video resonated with you, subscribe to the channel. Every week we explore deep psychology, not to help you fit into the world, but to free you from it, and you won't want to miss it.